T-Soft shoots it, deflected right in. Pietrangelo save rebound. Stastny stopped by Pietrangelo. I don't believe that save. Neither does Peter Stastny. He can't believe the save that Pietrangelo just made on him as Frankie Sparkly. Now that maneuver there to stop and rob Peter Stastny. He should get 5 to 10 for that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tendy Talk. I am your host Joe, better known as Washed Up Goalie on social media. This week I talked to the first goalie who reached out to me after learning of the podcast. I'm talking to Cali of the Teeny Tendy and Coach California Instagram profiles. We have a few connection issues in this issue, but I tried to edit them out. But before I talk to Cali, let's take a quick break. Cali, thanks for joining me today. It's great to have you on. Thanks for hopping on the podcast to talk goaltending. And I'm going to assume we'll probably talk a little bit training as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All things considered, yes.
Yeah. So my first question is, how does somebody in California get into hockey, in the first place?
I actually grew up in Lake Tahoe. So
Okay.
Lots of snow, lots of frozen ponds. I went to a couple of times to Mammoth to play pond hockey with my friends. Because it's a short 4-hour drive. It's not too bad. But yeah, it was pretty much that or skiing and snowboarding. So you pretty much had two choices for 9 months out of the year.
Yeah. Well, and they're pretty good choices if you ask me. I think both are. It's a win-win right there.
Yeah.
So when you got into hockey, what drew you to the net and the tools of ignorance?
Oh man. So I got into hockey because I wanted to play the Sharks fantasy camp, which they're no longer doing, which is a bummer, but you got to be a Sharks player for a day. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I really want to do that. And I think it'd be awesome because I've been watching, the Sharks since I was teeny tiny because we got them in, 1992. Yep. So it was awesome to have them. So I really wanted to get into it. And then also, I think everybody my age says the Mighty Ducks, pretty much talked us into this is what we're going to do as kids.
Yeah.
So I tried it. I did the learn to play. I enjoyed doing it. I was one of the better skaters. So one of the people were like, you might want to try goalie just because, you already can skate. So that's kind of a good thing. And then I got in the net and it was just I felt at home. I was like, this is what I was meant to do, was to have pucks flung at me at 60 miles per hour or whatever. We're beer league. We're not that fast.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Although some of those beer leaguers, they can rifle that puck where you're like, come on now, we got to wake up and go to work tomorrow.
Oh, you're telling me because I am teeny.
Yep.
I'm 5'4" and I have a 26-inch seam, so I have teeny tiny legs. So I have to wear juniors or intermediate gear, and I can't handle pucks that fast because the gear's not made for anything that high intensity.
It's funny you mentioned that because I've listened to a few podcasts recently with Maun Rayum, and she was talking about the same problem she had as she started moving up the ranks and the modifications she had to make to her equipment on her own, especially when she made it to the Tampa Bay training camp. And it was, mind-boggling, the stuff she had to do at that level. And one day the trainer was like, what are you doing? And that kind of opened up the door for her to get actual equipment for the level she was playing at.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have that kind of money, but if I did, I totally understand. And I am that, stock stuff at the gear sales at the end of the year and stuff, and be able to get these custom made awesome goalie sets. And I'm like, there's fit.
Yeah. I want to know what some of these goalies are doing for a living. It almost like, what was Kevin McAllister's dad doing to afford that house and take the whole family on a European vacation? I've got the same feeling about some of these goalies and goalie parents. It's like, what are you doing to get brand new custom equipment every year? I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, I know on my beer league team, at least, half the team is big kid jobs, so doctors and lawyers.
Yep.
And they show up in their Teslas, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to show up in a Tesla.
Yep. Well,
I the other day showed up in a Porsche, and I'm like, how do you even get your gear in your Porsche?
yep. Yeah, exactly. And I've got a big kid job. So does my wife. We're comfortable. And when I break it down, could I go out and buy new equipment today? Absolutely. But I'm still pretty darn cheap. And I'm like, well, that money could go towards the kids, or that could go towards this house project. And I think that's part of the problem with me, is there's always something else that money could go towards, because that's a hefty investment in just me. It feels selfish.
Yeah, I agree.
So you said something a little earlier that sparked a interest in me. You said you got into goaltending because you wanted to go to the Sharks fantasy camp. So that tells me you got into goaltending a little bit later, not like a lot of goalies I've been talking to where you got into it young. It was later in life, shall we say, after, high school probably, that you were like, hey, let's try this out. What surprised you the most when you stepped in the net?
One for me, like the eyes move, hands move, body moves, and then like the butter, like much, like my off ice training took a huge, like I had to do so much more just to have the leg power that you need for goaltending that I never even knew existed. Because everybody thinks that goalies are overweight normally, and then you see like the NHL players and you're like, holy cow, they're huge and slender. What?
Yep. Yeah, I remember there used to be, I had it on VHS. It was a NHL production called The Masked Men, and they were talking to guys like Dominik Hasek and Mike Richter, and John Van Beesbrook was talking about Mike Richter, and he's like, the guy's got legs that are like oak trees, are just huge. And that's something, when you look at goalies, a lot of us do have those naturally bigger legs just from the movements, and I think most people are shocked to find out goalies aren't most goalies, I should say, aren't the large, overweight players, but they're kind of the skinniest player on the team most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with the massive lower body.
I think people underestimate the strength we have as long as we can use our legs for it. So as a trainer, it's interesting you said it, because as a trainer,
yeah.
how did that change the way you worked out? Because I know for me, I was talking to our strength coach in college, and he didn't want the goalies doing a lot of upper body weight training. Of course, he wanted us to work out our upper bodies, but he didn't want us building the bulk because it would have an adverse impact on our game. How did, moving to goaltender change your workout regimen?
I was already starting to get into powerlifting. So for me, it was not too much of a big difference. It was just making sure that I was taking the proper rest days. But it was definitely, I realized at that time that, deadlifts, squats, all of that stuff needed to come into play a lot more than, my endurance. Because I was pushing it more towards endurance for skating because I was trying to be faster and all that stuff. So I was trying to do the more long distance stuff. And then I realized that when I changed to goalie, that you really have to have the short bursts of like fast energy rather than, and the stamina to stand there in a squat position pretty much for 15 minutes sometimes.
Yeah, when I think back to some of our team off-ice training, it was always the goalies that were having no problem with the wall sits. We're like, all right, how long are we doing this? This is fine. I'm going to guess you've probably read quite a bit and watched quite a few of Maria Mountain's videos as well.
Yeah.
I kind of call her the goalie guru of fitness anyway.
I do watch a lot of her stuff, and I do appreciate a lot of her stuff. We kind of waver in our mobility and yoga stuff because she kind of disagrees with some of the stuff I say. But I think that that's what makes it so fun, is that, you know, you're going to find what suits you best, and that's the best thing. And
Yeah,
you can take bits from everybody.
absolutely. And I've talked to Maria, and I think she would agree with that. Is, you know, on an individual level, it's not a black and white, this works for everybody. But in the role she has of trying to educate as many people as possible, you know, this is what's going to work for most. So I think that's where her
Yeah.
philosophy comes from. But she even said, you know, everybody's different. So every individual workout plan will be different.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So I've found it interesting talking to different goalies that don't have, you know, the background of, you know, say Ron Tugnutt, who I talked to a couple of weeks ago, or some of the e-bugs I've talked to that share their, you know, hockey life on social media like you and I do. What inspired you to start sharing that journey on social media, and how has it maybe help, I would say help your game, or even uh, encourage your game? Because I know sometimes for me, I'm just kind of like, I suck right now. And then I post a video and people are like, hey, you played all right there.
I have come to learn that the trolling on social media is not as bad as I think it is. Or it's just because I'm a girl and they're trying to be nice. I don't know. But I feel like I punish myself more than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that as soon as I miss a goal, that I'm just thinking about it. And I've had multiple coaches tell me, like, you have to let that go.
Yep.
um, but my telling people what I've gone through. I mean, that's how I met Justin and became an ambassador for Lift the Mask, was because I said something. I grew up skiing and snowboarding, you know, since I was 2. So concussions came to me at a very young age, that I actually got told at 16 that I would never get to snowboard again if I was going to continue the way that I was. So I had to change the sports that I was playing and change the things that I was doing. So for me, being able to help another young athlete not have to suffer like I did, because I mean, it really stripped me of my identity. So it was learning how to build myself and find a new purpose that I didn't think existed.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that piece up about Justin and the Lift the Mask program, because I was going to ask about that. Is, you know, what really did spark that interest in his program? You know, and what were you dealing with? Because you did share a little bit of that the other day on your Instagram story. And full disclosure, you know, I've been an ambassador for a while, and it's same thing, concussions, and
Mhm.
when I think back to the concussions I've had playing, is it hasn't changed me too much. It hasn't thrown me into a depression that I know some goalies it has, but I've noticed my anxiety or irritability. And I really didn't put the 2 and 2 together until I started following Daniel Carcillo, who's been very outspoken about it. But I really like the way that Justin's kind of handled things, where it's like, hey, we're all in this together. Let's just talk to each other. You know, how did you find out about the Lift the Mask program, and how has it really helped you?
Finding it, but I found the books and I read those first, and then I've been working with vets since I started my fitness journey, because helping people with PTSD and depression has been one of the driving factors in my passion for life.
Mm-hmm.
So when I found out that there was somebody promoting that it's okay to talk about it, I immediately messaged him, and I'm like, I'm sure you get this all the time, and I'm sure it's not that big of a deal. But like, to me, like, this was something that I already stood for, and it was just so incredible to have a community, like, just to be accepted right away, that
Yeah.
he was just so embracing right away, that he was just like, let me know if there's anything I can do. Let me know how I can help you. I've also been working with Headway, concussion awareness. Because these are all things that are
very, very, I don't want to say taboo to talk about, but I feel like it is. Just one of the biggest things that we see is players coming back way too soon than they should. Like, you know, Crosby's the best example that we can all come up with, is that if he would have healed more, he probably would be able to last longer in the, you know, his career would probably be longer, but the whole get up and go back fast, be a big deal. One of my teammates actually ended up getting a concussion by hitting the boards the other day, and it was like as soon as it happened, he got off the ice and he was like, I need to go home, I know what it is. And it was like, that's the first time that I've ever seen somebody actually be like, so like, it's definitely done a 180 since I was a kid, where they're like, just don't go to sleep and put a Band-Aid on it, you know?
Yeah, well, that's two of my concussions that really, I think the one that really set me into motion to the side effects I probably still suffer today with the anxiety and stuff happened in college. And it was just that, you know, I got ran toward the end of the third period, but it was a delayed penalty. So I laid motionless, just knocked out on the ice for like 30 seconds till the other team touched the puck. Well, when I heard the whistle, I started to get up. So the trainer didn't even come out to check on me. I finished the last 7-8 minutes of the game holding onto the crossbar with my glove, making saves. And it wasn't until after the game, we had a box of fruit in the locker room after every game, and I'm halfway through an apple when I remembered I don't like apples. And so I thought something was wrong with me, and I walked to the trainer's room, and they look at me and they're like, what's with you? I said, did I get hit in the game? And trainer's like, oh, you got rocked. I was like, I don't remember that. You know, but that was,
goodness.
I don't fault the trainer, because that was the time, you know, that's what we knew. But, you know, there's been so much we've learned in 20 years now, that it's not as taboo anymore. And when somebody does get hit, you know, we look at them and say, take a rest. And I think that's good, but there's still a lot more we need to learn, because very much like we're talking, training for goalies is different from person to person. The brain is different. It responds differently. You know, for me, I was lucky. I healed quickly within a week or so, whereas one of my teammates, he's never really been able to go back to hockey since. He tries to, but he can't even play beer league. He can skate and practice as a coach, but that's about it. So it's tough. But being able to talk about it, I think, is huge.
It is. And to have a place where you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where the Lift the Mask program has been awesome, you know, because I think if another goalie sees that sticker on your helmet, they know after the game they can talk to you. In fact, when I had Justin on one of my first episodes, I let him know, like, that same week after the pickup game I was playing in, because it was right after Wisconsin opened up their rinks after the first shutdown. The goalie just started talking to me, and like 2.5 hours later, we're the last ones in the parking lot. It's pitch black out, but I was like, this guy clearly just wanted to talk. And it was just nice to be able to do that for him. And it was cool.
Especially now is like the most trying time I think any of us have ever experienced, especially not being able to go do our releases. Like for us, not being able to be in a gym or be on the ice, like, has become, you're stuck in your mind more than you used to.
Yep. Which is funny for goalies, because we're kind of stuck in our minds when we're in the net anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think most people would be amused to find out. I know, at least for me and some of the goalies I've played with, when we're at that other end by ourselves, it's a lot like Julie the Cat Gaffney and the Mighty Ducks, where we're just like, hey, down here, I want a cheeseburger. That's how we are. We're not thinking philosophically during a game.
No, that's why I love when they like mic up, some of the like just beer league goalies, because like you get to hear the funniest stuff, because that's really what we're thinking is like, you know, like, oh, why couldn't they play a better song during intermission? Or,
Yeah.
or I'm practicing moonwalking.
Yeah, exactly. It's the stuff that goes through our heads during those times. People, they might even be scared of what's going on in our head because they'll be thinking, are they really okay? Should we let them out in public after this game? Yeah, I actually had a high school coach who was getting his PhD in psychology, and he said he almost wrote his thesis on me. um, yeah. So you bring up a great point that I even had in my notes here is through all of the lockdowns we've been, we went through, it sounds like we're going through again in most states. I know today we're supposed to be hearing, I think our governor's probably on TV right now saying Friday night at midnight, ice rinks are being shut down for 4 weeks again. Have you noticed, your teammates and the clients you train, have you noticed the impact on them and their mental health, and how have you been able to help them?
It's just trying to find the good that you can. Like here, we're back in the purple phase and stuff is being locked down again. We can't be in the gyms. We have to train outside, which I know it's not completely cold out here, but people don't want to train outside. And as of right now, rinks, the only way you can play is if you are a private party. So that's how they've been kind of skating by some of this stuff, shall we say. So it's been trying to find the release. So like with some of my clients, it's been, going out for hikes or doing different things that we normally wouldn't do. Or, like I ended up investing in synthetic ice just so that I could have something in my garage. So now I have 17 feet of ice. So at least I can do what I need to do. But,
Yep.
Which Maria Mountain actually talked about that too, because it gets you real dirty. Like, it's
Yes.
like snowflakes everywhere. So you have to it's kind of funny. Like we call it Zamboning the ice, but we're really just vacuuming it because we don't want it all over the house. But it's just finding a different release. And I know that it's been tough for everybody. And they say that it's actually risen 10% in suicides just in the last 6 months. So it's really the getting people to talk about it and understanding that you're not alone. And I know that even like most of my clients are so over the Zoom calls because nobody wants to look at themselves while they work out. But but it's still working on your mind and getting physical and getting action, getting your body moving is one of the biggest things we got to still keep doing.
Yeah, when all of our stuff started shutting down here in Minnesota, I started taking the kids to the different state parks most weekends just so that we could get out, get it some fresh air, and we didn't have to wear masks as we hiked through the, different forests. But it's like, well, now it's starting to get cold here, so that's not an option. But luckily, the backyard ice rink is almost complete, so it'll be cold enough for that soon. Which brings up a question I had for you. What's it like being a hockey fan in a warm weather climate where outdoor skating isn't an option, where the ice fees, I know from talking to other people in California, can be ridiculous. It's got to be hard to try and find that pickup game. Whereas, I can throw my kids down the street on the pond in the wintertime and they can play in a pickup game. That's not an option for you guys.
I think for the Love of Puck guys, when they came and me and Chip tried to get open ice for us, and it was pretty much completely impossible. And then when we told them, oh, it's going to be like $500 to $700, they're like, wait, what? It's definitely not cheap. It's definitely, it takes an expensive sport and makes it more expensive for sure.
Yeah.
And where we live, there's 5 rinks that are closed. 1 of which not a lot of time. And then, with the kids being out of school now, they're catering to children. So really we get between like 9 and midnight most days, or 5 a.m. in the morning.
Yep.
Which I heard Maria talking about, that it's like, you don't really want to drink beer at 5 a.m., but we can have mimosas or something.
Yeah. I'm Irish, and we have the saying,
That's
if you're
the
going to
hardest
drink,
thing is,
yeah, I'm Irish, and we say, if you're going to drink all day, you have to start in the morning. So
exactly.
yeah.
But it's also biding your time, like we were talking about earlier. Having a big kid job, it's like you can't really be out playing till midnight if you're going to function the next morning, or
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
it's one of those two.
A family friend of ours, actually one of the guy that probably got me into hockey, he played beer league hockey back in the 80s in Chicago, and they skated at 2:00 in the morning, because that was the only ice time they could get every week for like 15 years. But that was what it was back then. Now in Chicago, there's a lot more rinks, so they don't have to necessarily do that anymore. But I remember Chicago put in a couple outdoor rinks when I was a kid, and they put refrigeration systems underneath. So it was always good ice with Zambonis and everything. And he got to skate at like 7:00 on a regular basis. He was like, this is amazing. I get to go to bed and like get a good night's sleep before work tomorrow. Yeah. So you mentioned the For the Love of Puck guys. That's who I was actually skating with this summer, was Kaz and his group. I played an outdoor tournament, and that's actually where I met Chip. So it's cool that you got to skate with them too, and know what they're doing. So I think what they're doing is really capturing the essence of beer league hockey and what it's all about. And I think some of what they're capturing too is that it is kind of that mental release every week too.
And it's really different too, because I still give them a bunch of crap because they use skate laces to tie up their socks. So I call it the Minnesota lace.
Yep.
But here we don't do that. We've never even seen it.
Yeah. The best part about skating with Kaz is he always brings beer. Without fail, he always has the beer. So that's the best part of going to a skate with him.
For sure.
Yeah, there's some things up here in Minnesota that you wouldn't see out in California. The fact that they call the hockey pants breezers, that's always a debate in the locker room with out-of-state players. That, and instead of duck, duck, goose, they call it duck, duck, gray duck here for some reason. Yeah, that one's a hotly debated argument. But the skate lace was one of those when I first came up here for college. Is like, okay, that's cool, that's smart, less tape. Yeah. So we talk outdoor skating in that group. Have they tried getting you to come to Minnesota to skate outdoors like they did Chip?
Yeah, it's been in the works, but I have a different job that it's like I don't get PTO. So
yeah, yep. No, my brother-in-law's girlfriend is a trainer, so I totally understand that. It was pretty funny to see Chip so bundled up when the rest of us are like, it's not that cold. It's only like 10 degrees out.
I see, like, the Southern California girls don't understand it, or people, I should say, where I grew up where it was dumping snow. So I know the cold weather.
Yep.
Luckily, it's dry, wet. It's dry, the dry cold. We're here, like, everybody complains about how moist the air is and the humidity or whatever.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think if you came here in February when it's literally 30 below zero, you might change your tune about being prepared for the cold, because nobody's prepared for that. Yeah. So I got to get back to my notes here, because you've hit on a few topics that have kind of had me jumping around, which is awesome. So,
sorry.
No, that's good. That's how goalie brains work. So on your fitness profile, you share quite a few inspirational quotes every day. And I think that's important for fitness. But do you find, especially right now, do you find that's helping your mental health? As we talked about the Lift the Mask project, do you find that that's maybe more of a driving reason? Is it more for you than it is for others?
Really, it started with my therapist telling me that daily affirmations were a good thing.
Yes.
So I have post-it notes all over my house and in my car, and I normally leave myself stuff just as a daily reminder. And then normally at the end of the day, I have an alarm set that I'll just give myself a couple minutes to go through everything that I'm grateful that for that day. Just because it was the self of lack that I kept freaking out about. It was this whole like never feeling good enough that I kind of had to just talk myself into it.
Hmm.
So I've just been deciding that I was just going to spread it to everybody.
And I got to imagine some people are really appreciating
And
it
then
too.
I mean, a lot of people like it, and I feel like other people that don't can just keep scrolling past it. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't hurt my feelings.
Right. Well, and like you said earlier, you found that the trolls aren't as bad as people think, but I think that's also part of the hockey culture too. Is people are like, well, hey, it kind of the old thumper. If I don't have anything nice to say, I'm not going to say it. So I think a lot of hockey players are just kind of like, I'm not going to say anything, but if we do like something, then we're all over it.
Yeah, true.
You know, and I think a lot of times too with hockey players, it might come off that we're being mean or rude about something, but it's really, I think it's our twisted sense of humor where we're picking on each other.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes the way
I feel
we
like
show
you have to
appreciation.
learn that chirping's a good thing.
Yes. You know, I remember my cousin, when she came out to us and we started joking and picking on her right away and she started crying. We're like, oh no, did we say something wrong? And she just goes, no, I just know that if you're picking on me, it's okay. Like that's how it works. And it's the same thing in the locker room. If they're not picking on you, then you need to worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That I forget who I was talking to, but they said, the first time a prank was pulled on them, that's when they knew they were accepted. You know, it's
I
like
feel like that's normally when it goes.
yeah, you can't be mad when that stuff happens because you know that's just part of the initiation in a way.
I mean, I feel like you always know that you're not accepted until you get a nickname, and you don't get a nickname until you do something dumb.
Yeah, and usually the nickname is just your last name shortened up. Um, so I don't know why it takes so long sometimes. But my nickname in college was like just out of nowhere. We all went bowling. I was working a hockey camp before my freshman year after I graduated high school, and it was our night between sessions, and we may have had a few beverages, and we went down to bowl, and the one guy's typing the names on the computers, and he looks at me, he goes, "You got a nickname?" Because he was putting all the nicknames in there. I said, "No, I don't." And he just kind of squinted his eyes, and I think that was so he could see me clearly, and he just blurts out, "Bondo, I like it." And he puts it in the computer, and there it's stuck for 4 years.
That's normally how it goes.
Yeah, and the best part was it had absolutely no meaning behind it. You know, it was just, you know, later years, freshmen would come in, they're like, "Well, what's the name? The story behind the nickname or the meaning?" It's like absolutely no meaning. It was drunk bowling. That's the only explanation.
It was accidental.
Yeah, it was like it worked. Yeah, I think I've shared it on the podcast before, but the coaches would just call me Joe Bondo after that, and they would put that on the practice schedule, Joe Bondo. And the best part was, sophomore, junior year, that was on the practice schedule during tryouts. But when the final roster was listed, the coach put my actual name, and there were kids looking at it, they're like, "Who's this Drennan kid?" I was like, "Guys, that's me." "No, it's not." Yeah, I had to pull out my license to prove to him that my legal name was not Bondo.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so that was a fun one. And to this day, when I see my teammates, they still call me Bondo 20 years later. So that's been
That's good friends.
Yeah. Well, and that's if I hear that in a crowd, I know exactly the type of person I'm about to be talking to too. So, if you've listened to any of my podcasts, you know I like to kind of end the podcast by asking a series of rapid fire questions that I'm trying to leave myself more time for each episode because they seem to take a lot longer than the few minutes I thought they would. So my first one, very much like when I talked to vintage goalie who didn't play organized hockey is a youth, you may not have a great answer for this one, but it doesn't always have to be hockey. I'll put it that way. Is what's the craziest coaching moment you've experienced during your playing days? And I always like to, use the example of I was at a Blackhawks game when Mike Keenan went berserk on the Panthers bench and started throwing sticks out there, something like that, or just a good Letterkenny type coach rant, kicking the cans type of deal.
I never played organized sports before this, so like you said, it would have to be somebody else. But I can only go off of the first season that I had in playing hockey, and it was just we were beer league team and a rookie, and our coach, if you will,
yeah,
somebody's husband came in the locker room and was just like, at least we tried. So for me, that was one of the cooler ones. And then he grabbed a beer and walked away. So it was it was one of those moments that it's it's going to stick with me forever.
That reminds me of one of the coaching moments we had. It was my freshman year, and it was right around Christmas time. And it's 10 minutes before the game. We're all just kind of doing final adjustments to our equipment before the coach walks in, and this guy kicks open the door, comes flying open. Most of us have never seen the guy before, and he just comes in clapping his hand. Yeah, we got a lot of losses, fellas. Just keeps clapping his hands and walks out. And we're like, who the heck was that? Well, one of the kids starts laughing. It was his older brother who had just finished up college and was now coming home to be an assistant coach. But that was our introduction to the new assistant coach. Yeah, we got a lot of losses, and then storms back out. Yeah, so he turned out to be a pretty decent guy, pretty decent coach after that. But it was like, man, that's an introduction. So the next question is, what's your favorite all-time goalie mask?
This is probably going to be kind of lame, but I'm a Sharks fan. Always have been. I think Brian Hayward is one of my favorites of all time.
That is a good mask. Yeah, I mean that's got to be in the top 10 of anybody's list. My feeling is when you see it replicated so many different times, it's a good design. I loved when Eddie Belfour was in San Jose. In fact,
it just looked mean.
Yeah, it did. It was just like the perfect mask at the time. But I'm a big Eddie Belfour fan. I'm wearing my Eddie Belfour San Jose jersey right now. I loved his look in San Jose with the teal, and it was just great look for him. All 7 games that he was there.
Yeah.
What is your favorite rink that you've played at, and why?
Oh, I grew up in Tahoe, so my favorite rink so far, it was the 1980 Olympics. So we had the Olympic ice at the top of the mountain. So it just has the lake, and it's huge, and it was just one of the best things that I've ever done. And it was when I was still a kid. So getting to play out there in goalie or in hockey gear was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then when I went up as an older kid, you drink a beer at that altitude and you get wasted a lot faster.
That's a good trade-off depending on the way you look at it. The next question is one that some people they really have to think about, and others they just off top of their head they have an answer. What's your favorite stick that you've used?
I've only had two. One I got at the Goals equipment sale, so it was just a random stick that I have worn out to its max, and now I have our 3S Pro.
Now, I have to ask because you mentioned your equipment being the intermediate.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no, I can still hear you a little bit. You're still coming through, so it's good. I have to ask, you mentioned your equipment being the intermediate size. Are your sticks intermediate as well, or are you buying, the full size senior stick?
Yeah, the 2S. Did it work that time? The 2S Pro.
Okay, so you mentioned with your equipment that a lot of it is kind of that. No, you're good. So I wanted to follow
Okay.
up on that one and ask, with your equipment, you mentioned a lot of times you have to go with the intermediate. Are you using intermediate sticks as well, or are you using a senior stick with a taller paddle?
I like it taller, so it's a 26-inch paddle.
Yeah, I think I've got a 28
It's
inch.
taller than me.
Yep. I'm one of those goalies that likes a taller paddle too. I think I have a 28 inch where technically if I were an NHL goalie, that would be illegal because they only go up to 27-inch for some reason. So yeah, I've always liked a bigger stick. I usually ask the next question is what's your favorite youth hockey memory? But for you, I'll change it to what's your favorite hockey memory so far?
Oh man. I think my favorite one so far has been, oh man, hard one. Uh, uh, man, there's so many good ones. Let me think. Mm.
I know lately it just seems like
I think
anytime
my
we can get
favorite
on the
ones have
ice.
just been 100%. Favorite hockey memory so far, though, I think has been running into Owen Nolan at a Sharks game. I think that was one of my favorite things. Just because you never expect to run into an actual player.
Yep. Absolutely. It's always fun when those opportunities arise. Growing up in the neighborhood, I ran into Chris Chelios and Eddie Olczyk a couple times. In fact, Eddie Olczyk went to my high school, so that was one of the places I ran into him. So you don't expect to see him in places like that. So the next question, we talked about chirps a little bit earlier. What's the best chirp you've heard in the locker room or on the ice?
Yeah. I think currently it's been a player that was clearly playing down just so he felt better to keep your head up.
Nice. This is a question that is a lot of people have strong feelings on. What's the worst post-game beer you've had?
I mean, for me, it was definitely one of the after we played in was just because Ducks ice, and that was one. And then the other one, it's this Cali cream in here game. It's the worst.
See, for me, the only bad beer I've had has been a warm beer. As long as it's cold, I seem to be okay with it. Now, the next question is one that sometimes people debate quite a bit. When you tape your stick, do you go heel to toe or toe to heel?
It's heel to toe, but I tape the tip first.
Okay. Now, when you say you tape the tip first, do you kind of take the tape and run it along, I guess you could call it the spine and fold it over, or do you just tape the tip normally and then go back?
So you like sandwich the tip at the end and then you
Okay.
cut off the excess?
Okay. So you do it that way.
You make a little pocket around it?
Yep. Yeah. You're not
Yeah.
alone. I know a lot of just hockey players in general that they like to do that there. So that makes sense.
Not everybody likes their tip covered. I get it.
Exactly.
I like it
Um,
a lot better.
yes. When you're playing, what's your favorite number to wear?
Originally it was 13. I've had that number since I was a kid. Um, it's been in my dad always used it, so it was a big deal. And then I found out that as a goalie, that's a weird number to have. So I tried to change it. And then I went to 6 because um, in the military, 6 means I've got your back. So I've always felt like I've had my team's back. So that's why I just felt like 6 was the best way to go. And then I didn't have to fight over 13 with other people.
That's awesome. In these days, I think you're starting to see it doesn't matter. There's no traditional goalie number anymore. So,
That's a lie, and you know it.
I don't know if it is because
It's 1 or 30 something.
when you look at all these younger kids, even some of the NHL goalies, I mean, we're seeing 88 and what do we see? It was 18 or 19. We're seeing all these goofy numbers now, and I forget who I was talking to. I said, I don't care what they wear. I just want to know the story behind it. To me, that's the interesting part.
Yeah.
For me, even, I started out wearing number 30 because I was a huge Eddie Belfour fan. Then I had a defenseman who passed away who wore number 5. So I changed to 35, so it's like everybody has a number, but it's like, what's the reason behind it? That to me is the interesting part. Then in college, 35 wasn't an option. Somebody had it. And so I grabbed the biggest jersey in the cabinet, and it was 39. So the last question is, what advice do you have for young goaltenders?
Yeah. My biggest thing for anybody and everybody is the work you put in off the ice is just as important as the work you put on the ice. So stretching, workouts, all that stuff is just as crucial.
Yes.
So, and proper rest days and proper recovery is one of the biggest ones that I can tell anybody to do.
Yeah, I like that you touch upon stretching because that was instilled in me for my very first year of goaltending, because our goalie coach for the association, his career was cut short. He was playing in the AHL, was cut short because he didn't stretch. So he instilled it into us, and I still stretch every day before I go to the rink for that reason. So that's great advice. So where can folks find you on
Most
social?
goalies, it's a groin stretch.
Yes, absolutely. And thank goodness I've been blessed with flexibility. I can, at almost 40 years old, can still do the splits, but I know one day that won't be an option. So until then, I'm just going to keep stretching.
There you go.
Yeah. So where can folks find you on social media if they want to find you or follow you?
So I have my goalie influenced one is Teeny Tendy on Instagram, and it's Coach California as well on Instagram. And then I also have Fit by California is my Facebook if you like the old school way of doing it.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to have links to all of those in the show notes to make it easy on folks. Some of us are still on Facebook, so that's good. So, Cali, thanks for joining me today. We had some technical...
I still am, but sometimes.
Yeah, hey, I do too. But I don't know. I think a lot of people these days are trying to limit their social media because of all of the craziness on there. But again, thank you for joining me today. We had some technical hiccups, but that's the beauty of editing, and we found our way through them. So thanks for bearing with me. And
Thank you so much.
I think you set the record for laughter as well. So that's awesome.
I can't help it. You should hear me on the ice.
Yeah. I know on Spittin' Chicklets, they have the meter. I think we need the laughter meter.
For sure.
Yes. So again, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for all your time. It was great.
Yep. Despite the technical difficulties we encountered, Cali and I made it through the episode. It's always interesting to talk hockey with players from warmer climates or non-traditional hockey markets to hear how they started in the game and how they find some ice time. You can find Cali on Instagram at both Teeny Tendy and Coach California, no spaces in either of those, and on Facebook at Fit by California. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube simply by searching for Washed Up Goalie. Visit washedupgoalie.com for some great hockey-related content, my beer league hockey video highlights, and all podcast episodes. If you want some Washed Up Goalie or Tendy Talk apparel, be sure to click on the shop link on my website. I need to give a big thank you to the hockey band The Zambonis for allowing me to use their music in the beginning and ending of my episodes. You can download their music on iTunes, listen to their music on Amazon Music, or wherever you stream your music. I'm working on lining up other goalies to talk to. If you're a goalie or have connections to a goalie who I should talk to, shoot me an email at washedupgoalie39@gmail.com or send me a DM on social media like Cali did. And let's not forget, if you're a brand who wants to sponsor the show, be sure to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk. And finally, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment on the podcast platform you're listening on. It's a quick action on your part that helps others find Tendy Talk. Until next time, keep your stick on the ice and your body square to the puck.
1, 2, 3, 4. I'm a puck and this song's about me. I'm bouncing off the post, just wobbling. Sliding like wet soap in the sink. A stick needs to slap me in my face and shoot me in the net, cause that's my place. I'm a puck, that's who I am. May not look it, but I'm very important. I'm a puck, that's who I be. If you're watching a game